Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for being here, joining us, because I think it's a very important subject which we have to talk about. You know, we have talked already yesterday and today about the necessity to really rethink tourism, about changing customer demand, and we've also been talking about new goals and business models, especially for tourism companies, and to meet especially the environmental challenges. But we have not yet talked too much about the social challenges. And even though the ecological and the social impact is equally important, and it had been neglected for many, many years, actually. So besides environmental harm, water shortage, pollution, all what we've been talking about, there are also negative social impacts through tourism, the way tourism has been practiced in the last years. So land grabbing, you know, people normally don't want to say those things, but there is land grabbing, there is lack of opportunity for the local communities, there is exploitation of women, children, and just to name a few. So, but there are also very positive impacts if tourism is done correctly. Tourism can drive the evolution of a society, can be a vehicle for change, a vehicle for change, especially regarding equal rights, empowerment, and inclusion. So there is a chance of awareness rising, of dialogue, for tolerance and better understanding against bigotry, you know. And destinations can really open up. I have experienced it. You know, women can get empowered marginalized groups like LGBTQ people or certain ethnic groups. They can finally gain visibility through tourism, and this is so important. So, but what has to be done to make that happen? And this is, how can local communities really benefit instead of being exploited? How can the negative impacts be reduced and the positive impacts be maximized? This is the question today. So we want to take a look at some of the promising examples where the positive impact has become a reality and where communities have achieved social progress through tourism. And my guest today will tell us about some interesting projects from all around the world. So I'm very happy to have with me today Her Excellency, Ms. Memunatu Pratt. She is the Minister of Tourism of Sierra Leone. Thank you for being here. And I have Dalila Dias, I hope I pronounced it well, the Executive Director of Aldeias Históricas de Portugal. And I have Vincent Fonvieille, President of Agir pour un Tourisme Responsable. And remotely, I have Robin Tauck. She is the chairwoman of the Tourism Cares, the largest NGO in the US travel industry. And of course, she's also co-owner and former president of Tauck Incorporation, a global luxury travel company founded by her grandfather already in 1925, right? So she's right. So let's start. I will start with you, Madam Minister. Can you please let us know what are your expectations, first, just to get into it, your expectations for tourism in Sierra Leone? What are you expecting from it to do?
Let me say hello to all of you and to express my gratitude for inviting me to be part of this panel. Now, my expectations for tourism in Sierra Leone is huge. But there is nothing wrong if you want to think big. Because Sierra Leone is a country which has got high levels of poverty, unemployment, and huge resources, natural resources. So when you look at the social and economic challenges which we have, and then you juxtapose that with the wealth of natural and cultural resources, you definitely will know that tourism is in the middle to bridge the gap. So I see tourism as a vehicle to not only address the endemic problems, but then also to ensure that we protect our heritage, we protect our natural environment, and then we transform Sierra Leone into a beacon of a very good environmental and climate change practices, and then have a future of Sierra Leone. Because if you want to talk about the future of Sierra Leone, you have to invest in tourism. You have to have the public education. You have to have the good policies. You have to have the businesses. You have to have the investment. It's one of the areas which, for many years, we've not been able to drive that through our integrated development. But today, that's really what we are talking about. So tourism for the future of Sierra Leone is seen as a driver of change. It's seen as a beacon of transformation. And it's actually going to be the future that can respond to the many problems in terms of job creation, in terms of protecting the environment, in terms of building credible, good businesses, and then also in building political and social cohesion. Because when we want to talk about tourism, we are talking about the culture, the ethnicity, the language. We are also talking about how do we get people together to mobilize around things that gives them commonalities. So it's also a tool for nationalism. And then you can also look at this as a tool for proper citizenship and civic engagement.
So have you already some positive impact examples?
Yes,
what you have achieved already?
We have quite a number of positive examples. For instance, the first thing, quite a number of negative things that were happening in different areas of the sectors. They were addressing it. But the fact that tourism has come through to mirror it in terms of the programs that we do, we have got a lot of people listening. For instance, we have more people listening to environmental issues because of the fact that we want to drive home tourism. We have more people who are listening to us in terms of changing livelihoods. You know, people who have depended on things like stone mining, on sand mining, people who have actually depending on the depleting the forest and all of that are now listening to us because we are driving home the benefits of these very resources that they are depleting to tourism. So by listening to us, they are actually now being convinced that there are better ways of interacting with their environment, which can be much more meaningful to them than the destructive way in which they are interfacing with the environment.
So when you say listening to us, so that's the government, right?
When
whom else do you need to be on the boat?
Yes, when I say listening to us, it involves government, it involves private sector, it involves environmentalists, it involves people who are involved in driving social and economic changes. Because as I say, the overall development concept in Sierra Leone had a missing link, which was driving the development through tourism. So what we are trying to do is to use tourism to drive sustainable development, and then also to be able to reach the sustainable development goals. So what this implies for us is that we are driving home messages as to what does tourism mean to you in health, in education, in agriculture. What does this mean to you in having proper infrastructure, a planned city, in designing the way, in the manner in which you'll have a better environment. And then additionally, how can we leverage those resources and have proper and good investments in the country?
So there is a master plan behind it?
Yes, of course. There's a master plan behind all of this, which we have got some idea about it, but which is in the process of being developed. But even without the master plan, already we have a medium national development plan. And then we also have other targets which we have to meet. So which implies that there's already an overall idea. We, of course, have our tourism policies, you know, ecotourism policy, cultural policy, entertainment. We have our acts, so which is really driving the change.
Are they supporting it? I mean, do you?
To a large extent, because of the manner in which we are driving it. Because our strategy is consultative, it's highly participatory, it has to do with a lot of public education components, and it has to do with how do we get people to see value in what we are doing, and what does that mean to them, and how do we get them to believe in what we are doing. So we are driving it through small projects. For instance, projects that have to do with women in tourism. This is talking about women in coastal communities, training them on handicrafts, getting them to know that instead of you mining the stone and being involved in sand mining, we are giving you this handicrafts training. And you develop handicrafts. If tourists come here, then they'll have to buy it from you. So you have another livelihood. So we are driving a different kind of thinking around the way in which we reconnect the value chain into tourism development. And then also for small businesses. When we train them, we try to give them like startup kits, because these are very poor people. How can they restart their lives? Just in the way of getting them not to be dependent destructively on the natural resources.
But additional, because, you know, with the pandemic, we've just seen how devastating it can be when a pandemic hits, you know, and everybody's depending on tourism.
Exactly.
So this is always
so
one
I think that's a
important
very
rule.
good point. So again, it's part of the post-COVID. It's part of the way of responding to the devastation, economic impact on tourism, because we have to bring them back into the businesses. So it's a multi-layer approach. So we go in there, giving them all of these skills, giving them it, but at the same time, restoring their livelihoods as a result of the impact of the COVID. So it's a very integrated and multi-layer concept we are trying to drive, in order that we can use that as a vehicle.
So that is a role model, actually,
Yes.
for
Yes. It's really a very unique innovation which we are trying to bring to move to the people. So instead of just waiting for the safety nets, for the monies which should come, we are also trying to see how we can reorientate them in such a manner that we can respond to the effects of the COVID, and at the same time take them away from the destructive nature of the environment. And by doing that, you're attracting businesses, because businesses now will have to be established around all of those areas, because they will now clearly understand that the issue of mining sand, the communities are now more resilient, the communities are much more receptive, and this is an area where we think we can put up a guest house, we can put up some form of hotel, or then we can just do some beach bars. And so these are just unique ways in which we are trying to see how that is possible. And, and we are also looking at how do we ensure that we drive that through neighboring countries.
Okay, that's
like
what I want to say.
Liberia and Guinea.
Yeah,
So
be
we
a
are
best
looking
example for the area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we have realized that we alone cannot drive the tourism without our neighbors. And we are far advanced in terms of our tourism drive. And the neighbors are still very far behind. So we're actually looking at the infrastructure that is being rolled out by government. Now, if you go to Sierra Leone, there is a huge investment in road construction linking the countries. So we're also looking at those cross-border communities in terms of the beaches, in terms of the islands. How can we push tourism development, and at the same time, we engage them in tourism activities.
Thank you so much. I could listen hours, and I think everybody would be interested to know more about it, but I think you're here, people can ask you some more questions.
Yeah, sure,
I would like to see also the role of NGOs, you know,
we'll talk about
and that brings me to Dalila, because she's working for an NGO, and she's very engaged, and she's engaged in local development, and also in a special project called Creative Stories. So I would like you to tell us a little more about this project and what is the aim of this?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for being here. And of course, the Creative Stories is a project inside in another great and huge project that is the 12 historical, the network of the 12 historical villages of Portugal. We created a master plan to 12 historical villages. It is smaller communities with 40, 50 persons living inside in each village. And of course, we create an action plan. And inside of that action plan, we started the Creative Stories. It's a female entrepreneurship female project. And of course, we decided to take advantage of our immaterial patrimonium, immaterial heritage, and collected the raw material, endogenous raw material, and we introduced a new point that is design thinking, because we started with handicrafts, with the to do based in the know of the communities, and we called new authors with design thinking, and we started this project. So we decided to create this project because we needed to give work to the female. And at this moment, we have this project integrate 5 women. and it's located in a village, in a small village. And they are doing small products, dolls, for example. And of course, this was started with children too, because we needed that the territory didn't have that to stimulate the belonging to some place.
This is a very, very small project,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
But you know, it's like a lot of little stories can make a big story.
Yeah. And then we called children, and we started with them to give the imagination, to give wings to their imagination. And then we started the entrepreneurship with children too, to reinvent the legends of the historical village. Then we worked with them until 1 year with the schools. And
so can you already monitor it? The outcome?
Yeah. And then since 1 year that we started with them, then we bring the female, the artisans work, and then the young people to create, to bring the innovation with the design. And then we started this project, and until now, we have these 5 women, and of course, this project, it's not only to produce these products, but we have also other impacts. For example, give life to our immaterial heritage, promote the endogenous raw material, social inclusion, of course, stimulate the entrepreneurship, as I told you, creation and maintenance of female employment, contribute for the attraction and retention of talent inside of the village, and the maintenance of the inhabitants, because we must kept another people to this village. These communities are very aged, so we need to renovate the inhabitants. And of course, generate economic benefit. For example, monthly production, we already have 1,200 unities that is been production in that space, in that atelier. And the gross revenues is about 24,000 euros per month, for example.
Oh, that's good.
So it's
so
good.
I think, it's a good example already.
It's a small example, but
small, innovative solutions can really help change the path, you know.
But of course, we have a lot of little projects like this, and too much, if you have a lot of these little projects, we can transform the village, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, those projects, they cannot be realized in a separate way.
Yeah.
So I think you need a lot of collaboration to make that done. So with whom do you cooperate?
Yeah, of course, we are an association that integrates private and public sector, and of course we receive community funds and national funds too, and we work with the communities, and of course this is an integrated project. This is an integrated approach, and we work in all of areas that we have competitiveness. For example, our raw materials, the endogenous resource, of course, and our smart specialization is focused in our heritage, because it's distinctive, it's value, it's rare, and give us a differentiation, and we must take advantage of that differentiation. So we have a lot of small projects, but make the difference in the territory.
Yeah, and I think you also told me that's about making better places, as we always say, making better places to live, raise awareness, make people feel the value of their culture, and then this will have an effect on the whole society. So because it's not, we cannot see tourism separated from the rest of the society. I think it's so important.
Yeah, we can see like that. For us, the tourism, it's in the end of the line. So we work in other areas, and of course the tourism gain benefit with that, okay? But for example, we are working at this moment in the reconstruction of the village, for example, and in respect with the principles of the sustainability, focus in new materials, environmental sustainable materials, for example, and we want to create a hub in an ecosystem based in the principles of the intelligent, inclusive, and green grow. Our action is like this. So in this way, for example, we introduced the technology in this 12 historical village because we want to attraction another persons, stimulate another kind of entrepreneurship for young people, for example. And of course, we are working in the agriculture too, and the creative industry, culture and creative industries too. So we have a range of areas, of course, all of them intimated linkage with our attributes to make the differentiation.
This has also been like a result of the pandemic, you know, when people got a hold, so to rethink a little bit.
Yeah.
So this brings me to Robin. I mean, tourism care has also had a little change of strategy. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. I'd be happy to. And thank you for having me. I think this is one of the most fascinating and important parts of this incredible conference. And change is happening, and the tourism industry and the companies that are part of tourism cares are really part of, take very seriously this concept of social impact and what we can do and have done for the benefit of peoples worldwide. So Tourism Cares is a 20-year organization, started around the millennium, shortly after that, bringing together hotels, destinations, tour companies, cruise lines, hotels, literally every facet of, at that time, the U.S. travel industry, in a quest to get behind sustainable tourism, a concept that was just beginning, it seemed, although my days go back certainly to the 90s and even before that. How can we greater benefit the people and places of our world? Excuse me. And 3 new concepts have come out recently that I think would be very relevant to the audiences here. And that is, we have coined a phrase called meaningful travel, which inspires companies, people, destinations, ministries in creating for their countries, for their locations, a map and an educational platform by which tour operators, those of us who are creating experiences for our travelers, can learn, can see, can develop both online and by meaningful travel expeditions, an opportunity to see what's new and different in these countries and to broaden the social enterprises, the cooperatives, the women's groups, the incredible array of cross-cultural experiences that can be had and that perhaps our companies are not aware of. So we have developed several of these recently, and I'm happy to give examples when you're ready for that.
That would be my next question. Yeah, really to give us one of the living examples, you know, because this is for social impact, where it can really be achieved. And I think you have a good example which you can share with us.
Yes, I'll try to give you one example and 2 quick that are going on right now. The example I would use at this time is the country of Jordan, whose borders are open and who has been growing exponentially, double digits in visitation from all over the world. We created a meaningful travel map with the Jordan Tourism Board and with the ministries there in 2019. And what this did was bring together for the first time, at that time, 12, now up to 50 social groups, community groups from the very north of Jordan down to Aqaba on the sea, and not including just Petra and Amman and the more traditional tourism sites that much of the industry has seen, that actually created trails and maps and brought together almost 100 tourism leaders from the United States and other parts of the world to experience these social enterprises, some of which, by the way, recently were formed by Syrian refugees and other communities that come together in the country of Jordan. Now, the question is, so then what happened? What was the impact after that? Yeah. And the Jordan Tourism Board has shown that up to 10 or 15 tour companies and cruise companies coming into Aqaba have actually changed their itineraries, added days in the stays of the destinations, and the impact of these smaller groups heretofore had not been introduced to tourism absolutely incredible when they were having visitation for 6 months, where before perhaps they had not been on the meaningful travel.
How resistant was that? I mean, now with the pandemic, I think it was quite...
Okay, so now with the pandemic, the tourism has fallen off precipitously, as we know, but they have, in the country of Jordan, double-digit increase for the coming years of 2022 and 2023. Let's take another country, Colombia, which we'll be going to in November of 2021. Here's a country that has a sustainability policy. It took them years to develop it for the country. And what that means is now the tourism industry and the sister companies, Tauck and others, will be coming in, as the woman from Sierra Leone mentioned, will be coming into as guests into the platform that country has established. There will be 12 social enterprises from the coast of Colombia to Medellin, some in former areas that really did not have the advantage of tourism. And all of that in Colombia in 2021 will be digitally presented to thousands and thousands of people and companies, whereas in Jordan, it was a more on-the-ground experience. So it's called the Meaningful Travel Map and Program, and it's open to all governments. We also be doing a program in North America, in the United States, in my country, and also in Canada in late 2022.
So this is very positive news, because this shows there are steps already. There are people really doing, walking the talk, as we say. The economic impact, because if we took triple bottom line, it's always, okay, social impact, people, and also environment, but is it also economically, because that's a big question too, satisfying? Can you already say that it works?
Yes, I would credit, honestly, the Tourism Jordan for showing us how the impact of the dollars from each of these, say, 5 different companies. One of them was the Travel Corp that immediately in the following year added these social enterprises into their programs. This is, by the way, nothing new for us. I mean, for many of us tour operators, we are offering 3 to 4 social interactions, cultural interactions per day on our trips. That's what we aim to do, to bring together the communities that we serve. And if you take a price of a $600 a day or $1,000 a day trip times the money that directly goes into the hands of those communities, because we have tour guides and we have our people on the ground 24/7. We don't come in and leave. We don't come in one year and leave. We're consistent. Those dollars have made enormous changes to the health, to the school systems, to the well-being of those communities. But there is so much more to do, right? I mean, we need to constantly be looking for what's new and what's developing out there. And we need to be developing it into our business models, into creating templates, and to holding our employees accountable and our businesses accountable for measuring this, which, by the way, is a tough topic. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you so much. So we heard already about Sierra Leone. We heard about Portugal, very ground level, very innovative solutions. And we heard about, Jordan, and we heard about Colombia coming up. And I also want to hear something about Mauritania.
Yes.
Yeah, because I have Vincent with us, and I wanted to know, what is the story behind Agir pour un tourisme responsable?
Well, Agir pour un tourisme responsable, c'est Act for Responsible Tourism, is an association of tour operators which are engaged in a sustainable tourism. We prefer responsible tourism. And from 2004, we create a label, certification. And we are engaged in those.
How many members? You have members all over the world, or in France?
We began with 10 tour operators. Now we are 60.
Oh, and only in France, or also?
No, now in France.
Okay, but that's good.
But there are small ones and very big ones. And our engagements are the engagement of sustainable tourism, respect nature, environment, respect customer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, of course, respect population we work with and respect the staff, all this. And we, together, at the beginning, we experiment a mystery in Mauritania.
Yeah, that's an interesting project. Maybe you can
neighbor,
give us...
as a neighbor of Sierra Leone, and
Yeah.
not so far. Now, it's very interesting experience because, so I am reading because my English is very far. So I read something.
That's wonderful.
And it's very interesting because in this experience is in the desert of Mauritania, around the area of Agir. It's a desert. And before, there is no tourism at all. But we begin with other tour operators in 1997. We began thanks to the establishment of weekly charter flight from Paris to Agir, and by the company Point. And it was co-chartered by all these tour operators. And the offer, I explain because it's important to understand. The offer of these two operators was exclusively treks, hikes with camel in the desert. In very small group guided, group of individual grouped, guided by a guide, Mauritanian guide. And with local logistic, with camel driver, cooks, etc. And the accommodation was essentially bivouac, billion stars, and hostel, very small hostel for first and last night. And as I said, the tourism was virtually non-existent before the experience. So it was necessary to create, to train people, guides, etc. And to do this, we were fortunate to have the help of a partner for a subsidiary of the state of Mauritania, benefiting from significant means and the great freedom of maneuver. And at his head, a very open and clever leader, very important. And the creation of the circuits, the investments, the training, all this was thought and realized in partnership with this organization of Mauritania. And it was, and we made it according to the principle of responsible tourism, of sustainable tourism. Small groups, respecting tradition, respecting people, stakeholder involvement, all
and
of that.
As an additional income.
Okay, yes. And after 10 years of practice, we must stop because of the terrorism.
Because of?
Terrorism, HACMI.
Yeah.
You know, you remember, in 2008. And the experience was during 10 years. It's significant. And we, at the most important period, we had 10,000 PAX customers, one PAX for 1 week. It's, from October to March. It's the season of the in the desert. The season is from October to March, April, and we can observe that one exponential development of the local economy, exponential. the development of the seasonal jobs, including camel breeders, cooks, benefits widely shared locally, directly and indirectly with handicraft. You speak about that. And raising the standard of living. It, in short, it's a global way. We estimate that in these years, 10,000 packs customer generate an economy to allow to all the population of Adra, 10,000 people, to live better. It's one customer supports one person, in one customer for a week.
Do you think that these projects bring like also a little social change with them? Because we were talking about marginalized groups, you know, women sometimes not being empowered, and you know, societies which are traditional, and this is always interesting discussion whether human rights are more important or traditions are more important. So
yes, but what we observe is also it's I go on. It's the most important. It's a return, gradual return of the inhabitants in the villages, because all these people have left years earlier to enlarge the slums of the capital Nouakchott. And people come back in the village. They, as a result, we observe the revival of the oasis. We observe the reopening of school, and it was
like reopening schools. These are the social impacts.
Life back in the desert, because desert is alive. It's not contrary to the appearance. Desert is alive. And we observe exchange between the customers, the visitors, the guests, and population through the guides. This was very, very interesting. And Mauritania is a society of men. The women are not very in front of, but we observe the developing of handicraft, and the handicraft is only women who made it.
Okay,
so
thank you, Vincent. I have to cut you because we don't have so much time, but I would like to talk about if there will really be a new understanding of value, you know, because we talk about giving the values, or will it change after the pandemic is down? So will sustainability really become a new luxury in a way? You know, will experiences and meaningful encounters really displace old travel patterns? Will that be possible? What do you think, each of you? So, or will people just forget after the pandemic and just chase the dollar again, you know? I don't think this is possible because we have started so many new things, but how can we sustainably change the product, the offer, you know, not only for niche providers, because now we're talking about niche providers, but for all travelers. How can that happen? Can we do that? Will that happen? So I will ask each of you, please, very short. I start with you,
yes,
Madam Minister.
In terms of sustainability of traveling, right? Now, what I think is that I think there is room for us to promote a very, very strong partnerships, business-to-business partnerships, government-to-business partnerships, and trying to realign sustainability issues. Because my own experience is that we all agree that tourism has got a huge amount of private-led business investment. So to some extent, you need strong government leadership in terms of making sure that what is happening now, the changes that are taking place, is well grounded in government. And governments are ready to put in the relevant financial resources to ensure that this sustainability really happens, as far as the travel issues are concerned. And I should also say that we need to drive home the level of collaboration that is needed between very big countries, small countries, big local communities, to much more prosperous communities. How do we build those?
So we need global
We need
cooperation.
global operational plan, global operational partnerships, in order that you can ensure that sustainability is addressed. Because the bottom line is everybody is hit by the pandemic, but there is still inequality and disparity between countries in terms of resources. And I think the other thing would be that we have got this very big idea about the resources we get from tourism, especially when you talk about countries that have got increased arrivals, which is about big money, big values. How can you, in terms of sustainability, juxtapose that with very poor countries, that their inbound passengers are not as much, but they are doing very well to come up, but that they are driving the tourism as a way in which that can change their trajectory, that can change their destiny. How do we get these two things to work together? Because as I sit here, you can tell me about the resources in Spain, in Portugal, in Canada, as far as tourism is concerned. And then you take a country like Sierra Leone. We are not having those big numbers. But the recognition has to be there that apart from the numbers, Sierra Leone is using tourism as a driver of change. And that change needs to be sustained and supported in order that we can
And we have to tell people that people know, and because if you ask customers, they want to do good. The customer behavior is changing.
In order that we can all stay in the game. Because in as much as we may not drive, but you need people in your own countries that need to go back to those countries. So I think this divide, I call it the tourism divide. You know, we sometimes talk about digital divide. There's a tourism divide in the world. And so we need to address the tourism divide in order to use it to address the inequality, and then also to bring value to those countries that are not up to the level of the divide.
That's exactly.
So once you do that, and I think that tourism will be on the trajectory for much more longer and sustainable period.
Yeah, thank you. Robin, your short comment. We are running out of time.
Running out of time. Well, I absolutely think it's going to change for the future. I'm excited about it. Our industry is excited about it. And personally, I think it emanates from the traveling public. I think this pandemic, as we've all said, has affected everyone in the world. We care about the health and safety of communities, not just our own. We hope we're not insular, but we are all global citizens. And our customers are going to want it. They are going to ask for it. And when they are in a destination, for all of our companies, 95% of them come back, say the most meaningful part of their experiences was working together with other communities. So yes, has tremendous potential to change for the better.
Yeah, thank you. So, Dalila.
In my way, I think the destinations must demand new different behaviors, that the tourists could respect our privacy, our culture, because sometimes we don't see that, you see. And of course, for that, first of all, the offer and all the players and the communities must recognize the importance of work and live engaged with the sustainability. That's why, for example, our project started in 2016, the process of the certification of our destiny with the Biosphere destination is a referential, international referential that give us the instruments and the knowledge to make things different, you see. But first of all, the communities and all the players must recognize the importance of the sustainability. And I guess, for example, in our case, we are working in this way at least 5 years. and we can make that change. And we can see that some, not of all of them, of course, because we have a long way to do it, to achieve the 100%, okay? But nowadays we can see the difference, and some players tell us it's different, and they want to continue that way, okay?
That's exactly that. Before that, we have been commercializing the life of communities in a way, you know.
Yeah.
And now there is an option to stop that, to give back value, you know, and
but
to.
First, the community must recognize that value, and we can't change in a short time.
Yeah,
this
but
is
this
a long,
really stops like a cultural erosion, you know,
that's
what happened before. Yeah, so Vincent, you're...
If I take again this example of Mauritania, I spoke about a positive impact, but not negative. And the negative is the tourism was the only economic activity. And when it stops for reason of terrorism, everything stops. And we have no alternative. And this is a real problem. So, what that means is that those countries need absolutely tourism. Tourism, international tourism, is vital. Is really vital. So, it's important, of course, to have stability in the country to make tourism. But we must, Occidentaux, we must travel. Traveling, for me, traveling is sharing wealth. So we must continue to travel. It's very
that's
important.
exactly
Yes.
what you said, that it's, we have to
Yes.
stop the divide.
There is
you know?
no proximity market in Africa. So we must continue to develop international tourism.
Yeah, so that's a good word, and I think that's a good thing to say at the end, that really if we want to change, we have to act now, and there are so many good tools on the way. You know, you have tools, of course, when you do certification. There are the GSTC criteria, you know, for sustainable tourism, which also include the social components. So there are tools, everybody can use them, but just start. Don't be afraid to even do small things, but begin, you know. Yes, and we have to cooperate globally. We do not, as Christian Delon said at the first day, we should think locally, but act globally, you know. We need this international cooperation, and we really need to give power to the communities, hear their voice, change the patterns which we had before, and do everything to raise awareness in the travel industry that mass tourism doesn't have any chance. Because in this world, which is on this planet, you know, which there is no growth without end, you know. So we have to understand that it's the same thing. We cannot use tourism to exploit destinations. We have to ask for what the population wants. And this is not only because normally people say in the emerging destinations, you know, have to include the communities, you know, always on a small base. No, you also have to do that in Europe. You have to do that everywhere.
I think we need a real public discussion around how bigger tourism countries can bridge the divide with smaller tourism countries. We actually need to engage in that debate. So that it's not only about the revenues and the numbers, but the realization that they have to support other poorer countries for tourism to change their destination. I think that's very important.
That's for the planet, that's for our future. And tourism can be a powerful tool. I think we all believe in that. So thank you so much. It was fun having you. Thank you, Robin, for coming with us from the US. And thank you, all of you, for being here.
Thank you.